Hi everyone, I'm Jazz, and welcome back to Enigmatic Echoez, the podcast where folklore breathes, legends whisper, and history refuses to stay buried. Tonight's episode takes us into the ancient mountains of Appalachia, older than the Rockies, older than many of the forests of Europe, mountains that have witnessed civilizations rise and disappear. And within these mountains lives a legend that is not just a story, but a warning. Before we begin, this episode discusses death and spiritual beliefs tied to Cherokee tradition. We approach the story with respect and cultural awareness. Let's begin. The Appalachian Mountains stretch from Alabama to Newfoundland, but our focus tonight rests primarily in the southern range, particularly western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, and northern Georgia. The land is home to the Cherokee people, the Aniya-Wiya, meaning the real people. Long before European settlers arrived, the Cherokee maintained a deeply spiritual worldview rooted in balance, harmony between the upper world, middle world, and underworld. And in that cosmology, not all beings are benevolent. Some feed on imbalance, some feed on life itself. The name in Cherokee, please forgive me as I attempt to pronounce that name, Kâ'lanû Ahkyeli'skï. Rough translation, raven mocking spirit. It is classified among the witches of Cherokee belief, sometimes referred to as Jiskili, malevolent beings who misuse spiritual power. But the raven mocker is not an ordinary witch. It is feared above others because it does not merely curse, it steals life. According to Cherokee oral tradition, when someone becomes gravely ill, especially an elder, the raven mocker may arrive invisibly at night. It circles the home, it waits on rooftops, it listens at walls, and when the family sleeps, it enters. The raven mocker is said to remove the victim's heart, not physically in the literal sense, but spiritually. It consumes the remaining years of that person's life. By devouring those years, the raven mocker extends its own lifespan. This is why, in legend, some witches lived unnaturally long lives. They were not aging normally, they were feeding. Witness accounts describe a sound, not a simple crow call, but laughter. A harsh, mocking cackle that echoes like a raven, distorted, stretched, wrong. Some describe it as a raven scream mixed with human laughter. Others say it sounds like a flock of birds shrieking in unison. The Cherokee believe that if you heard this sound near a sick loved one's home, death was imminent. One account passed through Appalachian oral retellings tells of a Cherokee medicine person, a healer. A family had gathered around their grandfather, who lay weak and fevered. At dusk, the dogs began whining, chickens shrieked, then silence. The healer stepped outside. Above the cabin roof, something moved against the moonlight. Large, winged, but not flying like a normal bird. It hovered. Then laughter erupted. The healer began chanting protective formulas. Inside, the grandfather gasped as if something pressed against his chest. The healer completed the ritual. The laughter stopped. The grandfather survived another year. Now, descriptions vary. Some say the raven mocker appears as a dark humanoid shape with glowing eyes, a massive raven with unnatural wingspan, a shadow that moves against the wind, or even an ordinary person by day, and often an elder. It is said raven mockers can travel at incredible speeds, appearing as streaks of fire across the sky. Some stories claim they travel in groups when particularly powerful prey is near. Now let's discuss protective measures. Cherokee tradition includes spiritual protections, medicine people performing night watches, protective chants and sacred formulas, fire maintained through the night, sacred herbs. It was believed that if a medicine person could identify the raven mocker mid-attack, the witch would die within 7 days, because once exposed, its stolen years vanished. As European settlers moved into Appalachia in the 1700s and 1800s, strange overlaps emerged. Settlers recorded witch birds circling dying relatives, unexplained shrieking before sudden deaths, dark shapes leaping between treetops. Some dismissed it as superstition. Others refused to speak of it at all. Even today, in parts of western North Carolina, particularly near Cherokee communities, the Raven Mocker is not discussed lightly. Some elders refuse to say the name out loud, because speaking of it invites attention. There are modern hospital nurses in Appalachian regions who quietly admit sometimes, before a patient passes, birds gather outside the window, and no one knows why. Now, is the Raven Mocker a literal being, a metaphor for death, a cultural explanation for sudden illness? Possibly all three. But folklore endures because it holds emotional truth. The Raven Mocker represents fear of stolen time, of watching someone fade, of feeling helpless. It gives shape to grief. Perhaps the most unsettling belief, Raven Mockers could appear as ordinary people during the day, living among the tribe, watching, waiting, and their eyes would sometimes flash red when angered. Imagine sitting beside someone and wondering. Now let's go over the final encounter, the rooftop shadow. In the early 1900s, a mountain family reported seeing a large black shape crouched on their barn roof. Their mother was dying inside. The father fired a rifle. The bullet passed through it. The shape dissolved into what witnesses described as embers. By morning, she was gone. The Appalachian Mountains hold fog not just in valleys, but in memory. The Raven Mocker is not a creature you hunt. It hunts endings. And whether spirit, metaphor, or shadow of grief, it reminds us, time is sacred. If tonight's story left you listening a little closer to the wind outside your window, if you found yourself glancing toward the roof when you heard that raven call, then the mountains did their job. Be sure to follow Enigmatic Echoez wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and share this episode with someone who isn't afraid of Appalachian shadows. Visuals and teasers are waiting for you on YouTube and Instagram. And until next time, when the birds fall silent and the wind refuses to move, stay curious, stay haunted. Good night.